been wonderful spending time with some of you the last day, and I'm excited to meet some new friends today as well. Renee already did a lovely introduction. Some of you got to meet my daughter last night. That's the other perspective I bring, is that of a girl dad. But just a quick pulse. We asked this question yesterday, but we have more people in the room. Who here is using ChatGPT or other AI tools? Just raise your hands. Keep those hands raised if you're using those tools every week. Okay, so a lot of people. Now raise your hand if you've used generative AI to build a product. To build a product that's in the world, that's being used by other people. Keep those hands, raise them high. So maybe a handful of people, so not many people, have built products using generative AI. And we think that's a miss. Like one of the things that I'm really worried about is not many people are shaping the AI tools and technologies that most of us are using every day. There are about 100 million educators around the world. Depending on how you count, this is something that you can debate in many different ways. There are between as few as a few thousand to maybe up to 300,000 people shaping AI and AI technologies in different kinds of ways. I would argue that the tools most of us are using, you think about ChatGPT, you think about Midjourney, the real product decisions are made by, at most, a few hundred, maybe a few thousand people. The world that we're interested in creating at Playlab is this question: how might we democratize who's actually creating with AI? We think a world where more people are shaping this technology, are shaping its use cases, are shaping how it looks in the world around us could be much more profound. And as Madeline said very beautifully, we don't need to be on a timeline where only a few people are creating a technology that all of us are using. Instead, we can create a different timeline where many people are creating a rich diversity of use cases and provocative ideas for how this can be integrated into our own lives. And so that's why we're building Playlab as a nonprofit. We turn down venture capital, and it's not because we don't think venture capital has a role to play. Like both Seth and I come from the startup world. We think that in this moment, it's important for us to have public infrastructure that can enable all kinds of people to build on top of, both startups as well as educators and nonprofits and other entities, to build AI that's personal, that's relevant, and that's tailored to their specific context. And so what do we mean when we say we're public infrastructure for education in the age of AI? The first and foremost thing we're a creative platform and a creative community. So I know some of you know Scratch, but the idea here is how do you make it easy for anyone to build AI tools, and how do you make it easier for them to share and learn with and from one another? So you can create tools, you can share them with others, and if you find something that someone else has made, you can adapt it to your own context and to your own needs. Oops, there we go. The second thing that we're trying to do is to do research on what tools are actually driving impact. There's a lot of hype and a lot of noise around AI, but there's a lot of questions that we have about when do these tools actually make things better. Has anyone here ever heard of a Scantron machine? Yes, a few people have. I'm noticing the Americans. Americans love standardized testing, but there are these machines where if you've taken a multiple choice exam, back in the day of pencil and paper, do you remember filling in the bubbles? There are these machines that people created to make that more efficient. And what they found is that when these were used in schools, a lot of teachers are spending more time running these machines instead of actually giving students rich feedback on work. That's an example of a technology that, when it spread into schools, it didn't actually make teaching and learning better. Right? Multiple choice exams are not as rich as other kinds of exams that require qualitative feedback. And one of the fears that I have personally is that if you look at the hype around AI, having more AI-driven worksheets doesn't lead to the kind of world that I'm personally excited about. I don't think it leads to deeper learning. You might have kids having more worksheet practice, but does that mean they're building intuitions around math? Actually understanding how these ideas make meaning in the world around them? Not necessarily. The other thing that we're trying to do is accelerate open source AI. So all of those tools that most of us are using, they're closed and they're private. They're what some people call black boxes. You don't know how they work. And even open source models like Mistral, we don't know what data it's trained on. For me, that presents a lot of risk, everything from bias and equity to, as we think about like building things that are robust and relevant to our use cases, it's hard to do that on top of black boxes. And so one of the things that we're doing is with our partners, and we'll talk about this later, we're collecting data, we're de-identifying it and aggregating it. We did this at scratch when I was at MIT, and our plan is to do this with this data set as well, but then to use that to accelerate and train open source AI, not just amongst ourselves. Our plan is to share that data with academics and research groups around the world. And so what did we do yesterday? Let's get concrete. We started by dancing. Let's see if the video comes. I guess the video is not embedded, but we danced. We had fun. I had a little video of Christophe, Annetta, and Renee dancing. You can ask them to do it for us again later. We built. Raise your hand if you built a tool in Playlab yesterday. So you built a product. Right? And keep your hand raised if you think you're going to use a version of the tool that you built. And so quite a few people, just look around. So like a lot more people just raise their hands right now than raise their hands when I asked if you built an AI product. And for me, that's really profound. And that was just 20, 30 minutes of making. Imagine if you spend the research that we have. We've been doing this now with about 3,000 educators around the world. We're still in a closed private beta. But of those 3,000 educators, anyone who spent about 10 hours building has gotten to a place where they have robust use cases that are actually reaching, in interesting cases, things that they say are better than what they would do. So there's an example where PBS News in the United States just this last week showed, it's the public broadcasting news station in the United States. They showed a teacher in New York City who built an AI writing feedback coach for his students that gives better feedback than him. He's tested it for the past 3 months. We've seen like a lot of the outputs, and it's giving these very low-income kids the kind of rigorous, personalized coaching and feedback that they never would have received. He doesn't have time, right? He's teaching 150 students, needing to grade essays and give them rich feedback. And now they get rich feedback, and he's spending his time coaching and actually doing the more human work of teaching and learning. And so that's for me, that's what happens when more people can build. And we also shared what we built. This is Dr. Martin's tool that he shared yesterday. And what I'd love to do is, if you don't mind, I'm going to shift, and I'm actually going to bring us into the workspace that we played in yesterday. And so these are the apps and the tools that people built yesterday. We had many, I think nearly 3 dozen apps. Whoops. I dropped the mic. Here we go. So we had about 2 dozen apps that people built yesterday, and here we go. I feel disembodied right now, like a humanoid robot maybe. But these are all the projects that people in our community made, and I wanted to just quickly demo one of them. And so why don't we try this product development coach that Martin Tupel made. And so if I come here, you can click launch, and you can try his coach, this like real tool that he made. But since we don't have time for a full demo, I'll just take you into the edit. And so this is how he built the tool. On the right, he wrote his instructions, and I know he's going to share a different example later. And then on the left, you can test it, and we can actually see what data it's trained on. So again, it's trained on his knowledge. And we can see like past conversations, and what you'll notice is that his tool's also responding in German, right? What's beautiful about LLMs and like AI systems is they don't need to be in English. If you're more comfortable in German, or you're more comfortable in Zulu, we've seen people do this in South Africa, you can build tools in your own language. Now, because the programming language is natural language, and it can interact with people in their own languages as well, which is really magical. And the last thing I'll just show you really quickly, so Renee does not get tired of being my beautiful assistant, is I'm appreciating the smile over here. I started to build, just to show you how fast it is to make a tool, I started to build the John Zimmerman AI feasibility check. So again, in the top is we're giving the AI instructions. We're just writing, you're an expert in designing technically feasible AI products. I could have added you're an expert critic as well. Your role is to help people. And then you start asking the instructions, right? Ask the user to share their idea. After they respond, then evaluate whether the idea is technically feasible. And I didn't have time to do it. My internet wasn't working. But what we do is we would just download his toolkit, and we'd upload it as a PDF in the reference section, and we can actually start testing this tool. We have a version of it, and obviously we'd probably need to go through a few iterations, but it's pretty trivial building a lot of products that you can actually use. And so the metaphor I like to use is software is becoming a little bit like woodworking. You can build tools that are like jigs. You use them once and you can throw it away and that's okay, right? That's how trivial and easy it should be to build tools using AI. You might also build tools that take hours. The AI writing coach that I was telling you about, that's transformed teaching for this high school English teacher, it took him 1 month to develop it. He spent about 40 hours to build this tool, but now it's saving all of those teachers in his school lots of time, as well as about 50 other teachers around the world who've remixed his tool. They've taken it, they've slightly changed the instructions, so it's tailored to their context. So it's specific to their needs and their community and their values. And so that's it. Let's give Renee a big round of applause for being our assistant. I'm going to take you quickly into this last 2 slides. I don't want to overstay my welcome. It's okay. We will. We'll find it. Yeah. No, it's totally fine. But look, just the only thing I want to say is, I shared this with the people yesterday. We're very, very early to the era of generative AI and of AI, right? This stuff is old. I'm not pointing you to John because you're old. You've been working on this, for a long time. Yes, but one of my mentors founded the Artificial Intelligence Lab at MIT. Seymour Papert, he was one of the co-founders of the Media Lab as well as the AI Lab. And the reason I share that is this work has been happening since the 50s, since the 60s. The recent leaps in capabilities that we're seeing, they're discontinuous. Right. I had a lot of friends who worked on AI. If you think about what's powering these diffusion models, people would laugh at folks using that technology. It was considered silly, right? I was going to show you some artwork using GANs, which are kind of related to this technology, but that's what it was seen for. It was seen as a toy. It was seen as something used in artistic practice. But the point I want to make for that is 2 things. Madeline made a beautiful point yesterday around how artistic practice and design can actually push us to explore things that otherwise we would not explore. And one of those things arguably has become transformers and diffusion models. The second thing I think that's really important to share is because we're so early in this new era, we're at a moment where, like the metaphor I shared yesterday, it's like the early days of cinema. When the moving camera came out, people would go into playhouses and record plays. And then the next thing they did is they went outside and they started recording the street. It took decades, almost a century for cinema as we know it to develop into this beautiful, vibrant, rich, diverse art that we all enjoy, that we all love. Well, I'm not going to say everyone loves it. I know I love cinema. But the reason that's important to think about is cinema became what it is because of all the creatives who shaped it. It's not just because of the people who made the cameras, right? And the people who made the cameras and listen to the creatives to think about what they need and what they want. And as you think about how you use AI in your classrooms, in the world today, the thing I want you to think about is both what I shared yesterday. You all have expertise as educators, as designers. You have lived experience as mothers, as fathers, as siblings, as lovers, as friends. But we also have this opportunity to push beyond, right? It's easy to build things that fit in the world that we exist in today. So it's easy to build an AI tool that can make your teaching more efficient, that can, maybe make your students not cheat. But what's most interesting about this kind of technology is that it can open up new possibilities to reimagine, to reinvent, to help us rethink the ways in which we live and the ways in which we do things. I'm coming from the United States. We live in a very broken democracy. One of the things I'm hopeful of is AI could exacerbate some of those challenges. It can make them worse. But there's another path where we can start to use AI to harness human connection, to help us transcend some of the challenges that we're experiencing right now. And my hope for all of you and my invitation is help be part of the people that are building and leveraging AI in a way that helps us build the kind of society that we want and the kind of design education that we want. Because as Aneta reminded us the first day, these complex systems are hard to think about. Like changing complex systems is not easy. It's overwhelming. It can make us feel like we don't have agency. But what's beautiful about the academy is that your class is your class. You can experiment, you can take risks. It can feel weird. People might look at you a different way, but if you have that courage to take the risks, and now you have a community to take those risks with, I can only imagine the wonderful things that you'll do. And so thank you, and please be in touch. And if you weren't here yesterday, we'll share an invitation for you to join that workspace so you can play with the other people who were here yesterday. Thank you.